Please give me a minute. I'll be back. Just a moment. Okay. So, hello. Hello. Okay. Hello, Jocelyn.
Yeah,
Hello,
You can hear me.
sorry.
Okay. All right.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So, like I was saying, in supply chain management, we need to understand how risk works or how to manage risk effectively, because there are a lot of risks associated with activities within the supply chain architecture. So it's important for us to understand these risks and know how to manage them appropriately. Even from an individual level, we all have our own way of mitigating certain risks or certain events that may have a damaging impact on our lives or on our family members or on people close to us or even in our organization. Every occupation that people find themselves in, there are a few things that they have to be trained on in order to avoid certain events or certain occurrences and that are not palatable or do not inure to the benefit of their occupation or the organization. So we are going to start with, I won't provide a summary of every chapter. We are just starting right away. So we are going to start with risk. What is risk? What is risk? And if I ask you to tell me what risk is from your own perspective, I don't know, I don't think any of the understanding you give me or the definition, I don't even need definition, I need understanding. How do you understand risk or what do you know about risk? Okay, so please let's talk. What is risk before we go into the technicalities? What is risk? Or just you can describe it. I don't need a definition. We'll come to the definition, but how do you understand risk? Or when we talk about risk, what do you mean? Or what do we mean? Yes, any of you can talk. I should mention it. You are only two.
Okay, so I think risk will be an outcome of something or an effect of something, end result of something.
Okay.
Usually in a bad way.
Okay. Okay. Usually in a bad way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is accurate. That's accurate. Also accurate because there's negative risk. So that solves one aspect of it. Okay. All right. What about Nanaya? Hello, Nanaya.
Just
Obesika.
in here.
Obesika. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Nanaya. Or you can't talk, eh?
Hello.
Hello.
Christian, I
Yes.
just spoke,
Just in
so
here.
just yeah, can you hear?
Oh,
Yeah, I
Nanaya
just
just
spoke.
spoke.
So
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then it's the turn of
yes,
Jocelyn.
please.
Okay. Your
Okay,
voices
so
sound similar.
uh,
Okay.
risk is the possibility of it's like an exposure to danger.
Okay. So an exposure to danger. Wow.
Mm.
You've used one big technical term, exposure. Okay. Exposure to danger. So when you are exposed to danger, it is risk. Okay. And for you to measure that exposure, you have to do some calculation. Okay. So that is a perfect understanding of risk. That's the understanding all of us have. Okay. Now let's go into the technicalities. When we talk about risk, as defined by SIPS, SIPS defines risk as the probability of an unwanted outcome or event happening. So it is the probability that we are talking about. Because usually when we talk about risk, we tend to think about the outcome only. It's not just the outcome. The outcome is part. So if you say the outcome, you are not wrong. It's part of it. So the probability of an unwanted outcome or event happening, that is risk as defined by SIPS. Okay. Now, we will look at some other terminologies related to risk management. So I liked it when Jocelyn mentioned exposure to danger. Technically, when we say exposure, what is exposure? Exposure in the context of risk management is the consequences of risk events. So the consequence, when there is a fire outbreak, the destruction of property, the destruction of, people. Some children were just a few days ago were burnt in their own room, to ashes. The mother lost two children to the fire. So that, what will be the consequence? The consequence is death, and that is exposure in the context of risk management. So when we say exposure, exposure is the consequence. Exposure is the consequence. And after the death, what happens? The mother will not have these children to send again. The mother will have to think about how to, get pregnant and give birth again. If the mother is in menopause, has already attained menopause, it will be very difficult for the woman to conceive and all that. These are, and even the thoughts of losing these children, the funeral arrangements, the cost of getting, coffin and all that for these children. These are the consequences of the fire outbreak. What happens after the fire outbreak? One, life is lost. Two, after life has been lost, a lot more happens. Some of the benefit that the woman would have gotten from the kids in future are lost to the fire. So that is exposure, technically. So we've looked at risk. Risk is the probability or the likelihood of an unwanted event happening. Then we've looked at exposure. Exposure is the consequence. Now, what is hazard? What is hazard? When we say hazard, hazard is a source of potential harm. So a source of potential harm is hazard. So let me yes, so if you look at the A to Z, you see hazard being a source of potential harm or a risk source. So a dark pit which is left uncovered is a hazard. A child can fall into the pit and die or get injured. A slippery tile or a soapy water on a slippery tile is a hazard. If you walk in it, you may slip and break your leg or break your head. Banana on a staircase, banana peel on a staircase is a hazard. If you are working in heights or at heights without harness, it's a hazard. You can drop. You can drop dead from that height. So you need harness to suspend you in the sky. So these are hazards. Even traffic lights not working. If the traffic light is not working, it's a hazard. It's a hazard because cars can collide. Who will allow who to move first? If there is no consensus in that regard, it may lead to collision. So traffic lights not working is a hazard. A country without laws is also a hazard. And if there are laws and the laws are not working, it's also a hazard. Okay, so it's a source of potential harm. That's hazard. Then there is what we call vulnerability. Vulnerability. So vulnerability is also another important term we need to know in risk management. When we say vulnerability, we are looking at the factors that make, organizations more prone to risk. So it can be the lack of something or the presence of something that increases your chances of losing something. So let's, use our laptops as an example. If I slot in my pen drive into your laptop, USB port, and you don't have antivirus on your laptop, already your laptop, your operating system is vulnerable to attack by a virus from external sources. So if my pen drive has a virus and I slot it in, it can destroy your computer can also catch that virus, and that may lead to you losing some information or some data you have on your machine. But if you have an antivirus, that antivirus will scan my pen drive and deal with the virus before you even open it. So you not having antivirus on your laptop or on your machine makes you vulnerable to external attack. Organizations that do not have, backup systems, organizations that do not have robust firewalls can be hacked into. If they don't have very good information assurance system, they can easily be, or hackers can easily hack into their system. Those who also are into ransomware can just enter the system and change everything into hashes. Your data, they can hijack everything. So when you open the computer, all the data, information, text, everything is in hash. You can't do anything. It means your system is so vulnerable to external attack. Same IT people can hijack your machine. I think a few years ago, MTN had faced a similar, case. Yeah, that was, I think, in 2017 or so. They couldn't enter anything. Their computers were hijacked. So they had to fly in an expert to come and free their computers. And they had to pay huge sum of money to this expert. You see, so their system was so exposed and so vulnerable to attack. And these people, occasionally, they will do it. They will try and see if they can break into your system to see if your system is vulnerable. Okay, so that is vulnerability. A baby without, or a child without a parent crossing the room, it makes that child very vulnerable to, death, because the child needs someone to hold his hands to cross the room. So that is vulnerability. And organizations have a way of assessing vulnerability. We'll come to that. How do we, check vulnerability? It's one of the ways of managing risk or mitigating risk called vulnerability assessment. When we get to how we can assess and mitigate risk, we will look at that. Okay, then we can look at risk appetite. Risk appetite. Risk appetite. Now, when we talk about risk appetite, it refers to the amount of risk the organization can bear. The amount of risk the organization can bear, or the level of risk that an individual or organization is comfortable taking. So in some organizations, employees at the rank and file are also allowed to take certain initiatives because those organizations believe that for them to thrive in the market or for them to augment their market share, they need to have an innovative team, or their employees need to be very innovative enough to help the organization, achieve that target. So they allow every idea on board, but it is still within a certain, they still have some amount of control. So you can take some initiatives, but it's still within a regulatory framework. So you can take an initiative or you can bring an idea on board. It may not just be the idea, it may even be an initiative. The organization welcomes that because they believe that it is through these initiatives that the organization can thrive. And yes, they may lose some money. Some initiatives may work, some initiatives may not work. It may, they may lose some money in that regard, but they budget for it. Because if we don't allow it, they will be going home and sleeping on their ideas. They will not use their idea to support anything, just like it's happening in the public sector. The public sector or a highly regulatory environment stifles creativity and innovation. That's why the public sector is nowhere near organizations that compete on a global scale. They don't compete. They don't compete. So if you are there, you just follow bureaucratic processes. Your ideas, your initiatives are not even necessary because you still have to follow the rule or the law. Unless you propose that a policy should be changed, a policy should be changed, a policy should be changed, the law should be changed and all that. And it has to go to parliament for it to be changed. It's not now. So you just forget it and do what you can do and go away. But in an organization that finds itself in a highly competitive environment, they usually cut that red tape or that bureaucratic process. They welcome initiative. Yes, and they have high risk appetite. Not all of them, actually. Their risk appetite, vary because those organizations that have high risk appetite, they are called risk enthusiasts. So under risk appetite, we have risk enthusiasm, and there is also risk aversion. So there are organizations that have very low appetite to take risk. They are usually risk averse. They are measured in their, risk taking. They don't usually take risk. They are risk averse. No organization is or entirely shuns risk. That as for us, we don't take risk at all. No. The level of risk taking differs. Some have very low risk appetite. Some have very high risk appetite. Those that have high risk appetite, like I mentioned, are called risk enthusiasts. Those that have very low risk appetite are called risk averse organizations. They are averse to risk, so they don't take risk. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. That is the slogan of the risk enthusiasts. They believe that if they invest so much or if they take high risk, they will, yield high, it will lead to high return. That is their motivation for taking risk. So as an employee, you need to know the level of risk that top management allows to be taken. So you need to know the risk appetite of your organization and whether it is high or is low. In organizations where risk appetite is low, they don't usually welcome initiatives like that. And you have to go through so many processes before, so that is one thing. So we've looked at risk appetite, we've looked at exposure, we've looked at vulnerability, we've looked at hazard. Okay. Now, there are cases in the document. Now, the document I sent you, we were unable to print more, so we just scanned the hard copy and sent it to you. So kindly, and where Stephen is so far, so it will be very difficult getting you there. So with this, I think you can print it yourself and, and use it. Now, let's look at the consequences of risk. Risk can be positive or negative, or there can be positive and negative consequences of risk. Yes, there can be negative consequences and positive consequences. Someone would argue with this that if it is positive, why is it a consequence? Consequences are always negative. So why do you say positive consequences? Why do you say English? It belongs to the British, and they are saying positive consequences, negative consequences. So for the purposes of examination, we need to take it like that. That's their language. Okay. So positive consequences to risks. They are saying that when we take risk, there are two possible outcomes. It's either you are going to have a positive outcome or a negative outcome. The negative outcome is the negative consequences, and the positive outcome is the positive consequence. Now, with the risk assessment grade or the risk and reward metrics, there is a guide. Yes, it guides organizations that do it so well are able to know which risk to take and which risk not to take. We are talking about risk, and we've spoken about risk appetite. But even risk enthusiastic organizations do not just take risk, they take calculated risk. Calculated risk. So if you look at the grade, you realize that on the horizontal axis, there is risk, which can be high or low. Before we proceed, there is one thing that I forgot to mention, that is risk event. Risk event is another terminology. Now, a fire outbreak is a risk event. Flood is a risk event. Any risk that happens or any event, that unwanted event that occurs, which results in some form of a loss, is a risk event. It can be tsunami, it can be storm, it can be a natural disaster. Natural disasters are risk events. Earthquake, when it leads to the earth, separating and people entering into or being buried, is a risk event. Okay, so these are risk events. Fire outbreak is a risk event. Usually we say that's the risk. No, that's the risk event that is occurring. So we are taking measures to ensure that these risk events do not occur. These days, firemen, they do a lot of education. They go to homes and educate them on how to manage, how to prevent fire outbreak and all that. They do a lot of education. Okay. They help organizations manage, risk related to fire outbreak. So that is that. Now, if you look at, yes, Nanaya.
Yeah, Christian.
Yes.
So so far in your teachings,
yeah,
I hear that you link the risk to unwanted events, probability of unwanted events happening, and negative consequences of things that happen.
Yeah.
How then can you say risk is positive? Because so far it's only negative things I've been hearing.
Yes, that's why we are moving to the positive
How
consequences.
can risk be positive then?
Yes, we are moving to the positive consequences. So you just hold on for a while. We'll look at some of the positive consequences of risk. Okay. All right. So if you look at the grade, on the horizontal axis, we have risk. Risk could be low or high. On the vertical axis, we have reward. The reward could be low or high. Now, organizations take different kinds of risk. And this grade is telling us that there are activities that may be high risk but may yield low results or low reward. There are activities that are of low risk and may still yield low results. There are those that are of high risk but yield low reward. And those that have of low risk and still yield high result or reward. Now, if you take the low risk, low reward, an example is switching from a routine supplier to another routine supplier. A routine supplier, usually those that supply stationery and all that, items of low value to the organization. If you switch to a new routine supplier, it's the same low value of items that you are going to buy. And if you look at the project metrics, low value items or routine items do not have a major impact on the organization. Or we can say that the strategic importance of these items is low. So the reward is not that, high. It's low. It's still low. So you've switched from one routine supplier to another routine supplier because they fall within a market where there are many of them. You can easily switch. Switching cost is very low. You may not even incur any switching cost. So that is low risk and low reward. It is very, okay. You can consider that. Now there are risks that are of high, or there are activities that are of high risk but low reward. Now, if you want to now change or substitute your product or maybe your raw materials with a low quality material, in order to cut corners or to cut your cost of production. One may say, is cutting cost not a good reward? No. If customers that are quality oriented get to know that you are now using low quality material, they will not buy it. You will lose them. They won't buy it anymore. And you may go out of extension or business. They won't buy it at all. If they realize you are now using low quality materials in order to cut, down your cost of production, they may not buy it. So that is a high risk you are taking. And even if they buy it and they use it and doesn't work properly, your reputation will be at stake. And once your reputation is affected, your customer base will dwindle, will go down, and your financial aspects will also go down. So the benefits you projected to have gotten from the reduction in the quality of your materials would be lost. So it will yield to low reward. That's high risk you are taking because customers, even those that don't have money, they still at least expect some level of quality. So that is one area, and that is something that should be avoided. Then we can look at high risk, high reward. Investing in softwares like ERP, enterprise resource planning, it's a very expensive investment. High risk in terms of financial risk. But if you are able to successfully roll it out for a transnational organization especially, it will go a long way to benefit the organization. the reward is so high, but the risk is also very high. And this risk is not just the financial risk or the initial capital investment, but even the progressive maintenance, how to maintain when, or deal with teething problems, because we know softwares, these IT, infrastructure, they have a lot of issues, and you need to have suppliers that will be constantly maintaining it, resolving issues here and there. And that can also linger on for some time. You may not be entirely free from some of these risks associated with technology. But there could also be very high reward. So you may want to consider it. An organization with this information may still not invest in ERP. They may resort to this manual system or the use of emails and all that. Yes, because that's what works for them. It's they don't incur much cost in that area, so they may want to use it. But organizations that seek to expand, may consider using ERP. And ERP has so many aspects. It has so many models within it. You can choose a few of the models that your organization needs and implement. Okay. Then low risk, high reward. Low risk, high reward. Wow. So if you can go into collaboration with a supplier, if you can collaborate with another supplier with whom you are compatible, you are quality oriented, the supplier is also quality oriented. Dealing with such a supplier, even if your systems are compatible, collaborating with such suppliers result in lower risk. Yes, if in terms of reputational risk, because you are dealing with a supplier who is also equally reputable. You are in collaboration with the supplier. You can do a lot together. You can develop new products together. You can implement sustainability initiatives together. Okay. And in situations where you do not have usually when we talk about supply development, we usually, from our end, we think the buying organizations are always the ones developing supplies. Some suppliers can also groom buyers to their status. Yes. So if you happen to find yourself in such a collaboration, yes, your risk of dealing with that organization may be low, but your reward could be high at the end of the day, because the supplier may want to share their systems with you, especially if they see some potential in you, in you becoming, let's say, a core buyer. Yes, they can share their systems with you. They can help you or develop you to get to where they want you to be or become a core customer. So in that regard, you can progress. Now, let's note that all these that we've said may vary. There are so many dimensions to the calculation of these the risk for these activities that I've just cited. Okay. So, like Nanaya said, yes, you invest in a particular project with the aim of getting a high return. Just a minute. A lady, this is funny, but it's not the best of examples though. A lady just recently said she wasn't interested in a church she was attending, and so she needed all her money back. The tithes that she had paid for some time, she had a record of it. And he said the church told her that she should, build her treasures in heaven. But now she has realized that she doesn't have any money, and she has made a lot of investments in the church. So she is bringing a tithe book. They should look at the money she has put in and give her back her money. Okay, so she invested it with the aim of getting some reward when she needs help. As she went to them, they couldn't provide any help, and that was what struck her. That look, after giving all this money, if I'm not getting anything, my business has gone down. If you are not helping me in any way, then I'm taking back my money. You see, that's not the best example, but from a corporate perspective, organizations invest huge sums of money in projects that they think may inure to the long-term benefits of the organization. And sometimes they are able to get the benefit. Other times they lose the money. That is why top management will have to be convinced beyond reasonable doubt before releasing funds for such projects. There should be estimated benefits, how that project may result in the competitive advantage of the organization, how that project will help the organization achieve a targeted market share, will be 20% market share or 30%. These are all estimates, but at least the calculation should, or the reality should be close to the estimate or the estimated benefits. So there are negative consequences of risks, and there are also positive consequences of risk. We take risk every day. Even leaving your room to go to the organization, your company, is risk. On the way, you may meet someone who may assist you or who may help you with something. On that same path, an accident may be, lurking somewhere. So we take risk every day, and sometimes we ask, I thank God that I came here. Sometimes when the outcome is negative, you say, what actually brought me here? We do that all the time. I shouldn't have even come here. I shouldn't have even used this road. Look at this gory accident. Why didn't I use the other road? We take chances all the time. And the outcome can either be positive or negative. Nana, please, have I answered your question? Okay.
Okay, so Stephen, please just to sorry, please.
Yes.
So just to confirm,
okay,
the consequences of risk could be positive or negative.
Yes.
Doesn't mean for risk events they are usually the negative ones.
Yes, risk events are usually negative.
Events,
Yes. Risk
Okay, but
events
the
are
consequences of
usually
risk
disasters.
itself can be.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know?
But the consequences.
Yes. The consequence can be, you realize that the risk that usually has positive or negative consequence that I've been talking about usually has to do with financial risk. Okay. So most of the projects or activities that I've mentioned, if you are committing money, you are losing money to the project. It is financial risk. You can either get all the money back and more, or you can lose everything. The probability of you getting the money back or getting the a very good return on that investment could be high, could be low. Maybe you've estimated it to be high return, but high risk. Now you invest it and the return is medium. Sometimes you invest and the return is a bit medium. Okay, look at what happened to the debt exchange. A lot of people lost their money, those who saved with data bank. If you were going to take your money, I think some had about 80,000 Ghana. They were making a lot of money. Some were even cashing out monthly on their monies they had in their investment. But when the debt exchange program was rolled out, they went back for their money and they said they were going to lose a certain amount if they wanted to liquidate. So those who had 80,000 cedis, some lost about 20,000 Ghana cedis. So in that situation, you would either decide whether to take it or to leave it in it until the time when the effect of the debt exchange program will be gone, or until a time where the market value will rise back on track. You have to take all those calculations. But before the debt exchange program, they were benefiting. The interest was good. Okay. No one estimated something of that, or even planned or thought something of that sort would even happen. But it sometimes happens. Okay, so it can be positive. And most of the examples I've given are financial risk. Financial risk. You committing financial money or financial resources to a project and not getting the returns you want, or getting more of the returns you want. So it can be positive or negative. So that is the angle we are talking about, or from which this discussion is going. But when we talk about risk events, usually most risk events are negative. They are either accidents or and even in risk events, there are some beneficiaries. But we are looking at it from the organization's point of view. Okay. There are some beneficiaries. This doom so that is going on. It's market for some people. It's an opportunity to sell, torchlights and generators and all that. People were buying generators within that way. Okay. So let's take note. So I explained the grade from the perspective of financial risk. And we will look at some of the types of risk. I think let's look at the categories of risk. Okay, before we look at that, let's look at losses, direct and indirect loss. Okay, so when we talk about direct loss, I will use example. So direct loss has to do with what we lose in risk directly from risk events. Okay, so when there's a fire outbreak, you lose life, you lose property, maybe your furniture, the furniture in the room, some of your certificates, your dresses, you lose some of these items. That is the direct loss. Then the indirect loss is the consequential loss So we are looking at the consequence of the loss. So yes, your house is burnt. What is the next thing? You have to maybe go and rent or sleep in a hotel with your kid. If no one is, or no relative is willing to take you in, you have to go and sleep in a hotel. Maybe that's the only comfortable place you can have, or you can be for maybe a week, okay, or 2 days or 3 days to have that problem resolved. That is the consequence. Your certificates may be gone. You have to now go back to your school and request for a new certificate, giving reasons for the request, and waiting or making some payments. If it's an organization that catches fire or that caught fire, then it means your computers will all be gone. Your, some of your machines may catch fire, and expensive machines, you will lose them all to fire. Now, the cost or the money you have to, or you would need to replace all these items, they are as a consequence of, the fire out. So those are consequential losses or indirect losses. Those are consequential losses or indirect losses. Okay, so you have a case here. A case here. Kindly work on it. We are going to tell or differentiate direct losses from indirect losses. So distinguish between the direct losses and indirect losses. So engine core had sent a batch of 1,000 parts to be chemically treated as part of an outsourced process to its supplier treatment core. Engine core had paid for the manufacture and repair of many tools that were stored at and used in the process at treatment core. After a fire at treatment core, the following losses were reported to the management team at engine core. So after the fire, these were the losses. Now, these losses will have to be categorized under direct and indirect losses. Now, if you look at 950 unsalvageable parts, so the 950 parts that were not saved from the fire, they were lost to the fire. Is that direct or indirect loss?
It's direct.
Okay, that's direct. Okay, 15 high value tools were also gone.
That will be indirect.
15 high value tools will be indirect. Okay, 250 late customer orders. So 15 high value tools were also gone. Okay, so
That's also direct, sir.
Yes, that's also direct. 250 late customer orders due to missing parts.
That's indirect.
Okay, that's indirect. So it is due to missing parts, the parts that were lost to the fire. Okay. So requirement to replace the tools at short notice.
Indirect, sir.
That's also indirect. Payment for new treatment or to rush replacement parts through the process at a higher rate than agreed with the original supplier.
Indirect.
Indirect, okay. Overtime at engine core to get back on track.
Indirect.
Indirect, okay. Quality assurance cost.
It's indirect.
Indirect. Okay. Supplier visits to the new supplier.
Indirect.
Indirect. Additional expediting and other progressing costs to micromanage the deficit in plant stock.
Indirect.
Indirect. Reputational damage due to late orders.
Indirect.
Okay, so you realize that there is only 2 direct losses. I think so. Yes, the 500 and 950 unsalvageable parts and 15 high value. The rest are all as a consequence of the fire out. So that is it for today.
That's why is the 15 high value tools direct? Because if I am a company and I've taken my parts to an outsourced company, to me, the 15 value high value tool will not be direct to me. Or where are we looking at it from?
That's a very good question. Now, let's read it again. Engine Corp had sent a batch of 1,000 parts to be chemically treated as part of an outsourced process to its supplier Treatment Corp. Engine Corp had paid for the manufacture and repair of many tools that were stored at and used in the process at Treatment Corp. Now, after a fire at Treatment Corp, so Treatment Corp had these 1,000 parts, these tools that had been paid for. After a fire at Treatment Corp, the following losses were reported to the management team at Engine Corp. Now, you are looking at it from a legal point of view. Okay, that's a legal argument. But we are singling out the event, the risk event that occurred, and what was lost in the fire, and what came about as a consequence of that fire outbreak, for the purposes of education. As to the legal arguments regarding, outsourcing and all that, is between the two companies. I don't know if you get me. But the most important thing is that we are able to identify what is the direct and what is the indirect loss. Okay. The issue you are raising is a legal argument. That's between the two companies. Okay. This is for our education.
But Christian,
yes.
Just to add to what you said.
Okay.
Can you also, if direct losses are those that arise directly from a risk event?
Yeah.
You can say once the tools were also found in that particular warehouse and it was burnt, it's direct.
Yes, it's direct.
The tools and the parts.
Yes.
And cannot be described as indirect because
yes, because these 15 high value tools, one can also argue these 15 high value tools, were they salvageable or unsalvageable?
Yeah.
If they were salvageable tools, then it will not even come into the picture. It wasn't lost to the fire. And it wouldn't even be here. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah, and they are quantifiable. They can be quantified.
Good.
So it makes them direct.
Yes. It means those were also lost to the fire. So it's just that they didn't bring on salvageable. So maybe 15 high value tools were also lost to the fire. So it makes it direct. Okay. All right. Okay. So Jocelyn, please, are you okay?
Yeah, so I'm fine.
Okay. Okay. So when you go to the exam, so they are going to give scenarios like that. But our objective is to be able to identify which of the losses are direct and which of the losses are not direct. Okay. All right. So now let's look at the category. Yes, yeah, laws can be, we have contractual laws, financial laws, environmental laws. Those ones you can read them. But let's look at the sources of risk. Now, risk can be, after the source, to look at the categories. Then we'll bring our meeting to an end. Now, risk can come from the internal environment or the external environment. Now, when we talk about the internal environment, level 4, we know it has to do with the organization and everything within it, its policies, its processes, its strategies, its resources. So the people within the organization, the resources, both physical and spiritual, these are resources within the organization. These same resources can be sources of risk to the organization. So if you have a human or a human resource that is not skilled enough to perform a particular task, there's a possibility that there will be a lot of mistakes which may be very expensive, too expensive for the organization to absorb or to pay. That's a source of risk. You can also lose a high quality staff within the organization. If you lose a high quality staff due to accident, maybe workplace accident, it is also a risk, an internal risk. It's very important to understand all this. So the risk, we can also get them from doing some internal strength and weaknesses analysis or SWOT analysis. If you look at the SWOT analysis, we have our strengths and weaknesses, we have opportunities and threats. The opportunities and threats are outside the organization, but the strengths and weaknesses are within the organization. We are looking at the organization's strengths, the strengths in terms of its resources and its strategies, its initiatives, its copyright or patents, its processes, its knowledge in certain areas, its differentiation strategy or cost leadership strategy, among others. You could also look at weaknesses. Weaknesses could be the lack of all the things that I've mentioned under strengths, and many more. Then opportunities could be within the external environment, outside the organization or the environment within which the organization competes. It could be the industry. So within the industry, there could be opportunities, there could also be threats. And looking out for these threats would also be very important to the organization as regards developing its strategies. So these threats can inform strategy and decision making. Then we can look at external sources. External sources, I've explained the external sources, but we'll look at it into details when we look at STIPO. For STIPO, we'll deal with the external proper. Now let's look at the categories of risk. And this is also very examinable. Yes, there are 4 categories. We have financial risk, operational risk, strategic risk, and hazard risk. Now, financial risk has to do with financial losses. Now, operational risk, strategic risk, and other hazard risk all have financial implications. So if you cannot, or your operational aspect cannot function properly due to the lack of something, it means you are not able to produce, you cannot even meet production schedule because operations is not running or are not running properly.
The line keeps breaking, so I don't get some of the things you say.
Okay. Hello. So like I was saying, I'm saying that this is very examinable. Financial risk, operational risk, strategic risk, hazard risk. Operational risk, strategic risk, and hazard risk all have financial implications. Let's start with operational risk. Now, here we are looking at your ability to perform your day-to-day task. If anything impacts your ability to perform your day-to-day tasks, let's say in your organization, it could be your computer not working properly. If your computer is not working properly, or if the network is not, you have a network challenge, and your tasks are based on network, will you be able to work? You won't. You won't be able to work properly because the network will be on and off, on and off. And it can affect your productivity that very day. Okay, so if production schedules have to be met, you may not be able to meet it. And you not being able to meet it is not you per se, but the organization, because the organization is the supplier. If production schedules are not met, delivery time will be late. Means you are going to make late deliveries, or you are going to supply in part and not in full. And that may lead to customer dissatisfaction, and your reputation in the long term may be lost due to some of these things, unless you are able to get someone who, a network that is more reliable. That can impact on your financial aspect. If your operations are not running properly, or if something is impacting on your ability to perform your day-to-day activities, it means you won't be able to, you can't be productive. And you not being productive means you cannot make a lot of money. That affects your finances. So you are losing money. So there is a link between operational risk and financial risk. Then strategic risk. It has to do with making decisions, strategic decisions. You need decision-making softwares or tools. You need people to help you make the right decision or develop the right strategy. If your strategy is not good enough and you roll it out and it fails, it will have some financial implications, because yes, no good strategy is implemented without money. There will still be some financial commitment to implementing strategy. And if it doesn't go well, you are losing money. Then there is hazard risk, sources of potential harm. If there is a source of potential harm and you don't do anything and the harm occurs, you may lose life, you may lose property, you may lose critical data. You may lose critical data due to hazard risk. And that could also have financial consequences. Then we can talk about the financial risk itself, which has to do with the money you are investing in a strategy, in your operations, or in a project. You put in the money and you don't get the return you want, or even the same amount you invested. If you even break even, fine, it's acceptable, but you may not get the same amount back. That could be financial risk. And organizations take this risk every day. They are always committing money to one project or the other. It can either yield positive return or negative return. Okay. So that is it for today. If you have any additions, any questions, kindly put it forward and let's see how best we can address it. In our next meeting, God willing, tomorrow we will look at risk from wider environments. And we'll take our time and demystify it. Yes. Any comments, any additions, any examples you can give at your workplace related to what we've discussed so far, it will be very helpful. So I'm waiting to hear from you. Do you have any examples of risk? Hello?
Hello, Christian. For me, I didn't get that whole part because the line went totally off. So maybe when you send the recording, I'll just have to read that part again. That whole part,
okay.
I didn't get
the
it.
categories of risk.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think apart from the operational that I managed to hear something, but the rest I didn't get anything.
Okay, then
I'll read on it later.
Okay, then but nonetheless, before that, do you have what we've discussed so far? Do you have a similar issue as regards risks lately? Maybe your organization was involved in something that made you lose some money and all that. If only it's not a confidential information that you can share, you can share with us. Or even at an individual level at your workplace, have you been involved in one risk or the other?
Yeah, there has been a recent risk, but that is not in terms of financial wise, where a guy collapsed, I think, offshore.
Okay.
And they realized that because of what happened now, they are intensifying the fitness to work policy. They are extending it to include certain aspects that didn't usually wasn't part of it. So like that.
Okay, so the person collapsed.
And some other things have been. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Was rushed to the hospital and then that was it.
Oh, okay. It means he wasn't healthy.
Yeah, the person collapsed at the canteen. Yes. So due to this risk event that happened,
you've augmented your health regime.
Yes, there's exactly the fitness to work policy has now been extended to include certain things, and then in terms of the period to it's been duly extended. Let's say periodically, if it's 3 months or a year, than 2 years and all
that. That has to do with health check, right?
Yeah.
The fitness. Okay. So
yes, that has got to do with health wise.
Yeah. Okay. That's very good because almost all the machines you use are maintained. There is maintenance for the machines at regular basis. Human beings are also resources that need to be checked. Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Any similar events?
Oh.
Or a reported risk event lately at your organization?
Oh, down there plenty. Risk
Plenty.
there.
Oh, give us some. One that you
Okay,
can.
so okay, so let me put it like so I'm with operations. Okay, so
Okay.
there was an event where money was lost. So
Okay.
this will fall under financial risk,
Okay.
where it looks like the leader or the head of department made some bad decisions and placed an outsourced staff who didn't seem to have a lot or enough training, placed the staff to be how do you call this thing, to be booking loans.
Okay.
And in the process of booking these loans, a customer needed their collateral to be released to them.
Okay.
But before a collateral is released, in this case, the collateral was cash.
Okay.
The cash needed to be offsetted with their debt because they had a loan. So we offset the cash with the debt.
Okay.
Then the rest is given to the customer. After the amount, the collateral was offsetted, the outsourced staff did not deactivate the OD line, which is the loan that the customer is still having, which is available to them.
Okay.
So after the money was offsetted, customer took the balance and still withdrew money from the bank.
Wow.
So now we still have a loan pending with no collateral.
Wow. Wow. That's a strategic risk. Okay. Okay. So wow. And it's I would say it's both financial and strategic.
And operational. Because if the staff did their job right, the customer won't still have access to the loan.
Exactly. Oh, that's good. That's a very good example. All right. So I think it's enough. We've had enough for the day. God willing, tomorrow at 3, we'll meet and continue. We'll finish learning outcome 1.1 tomorrow and move to learning outcome 1.2. Okay. All right. Thanks for your time and enjoy the rest of the day. I'll share the recordings with you on Telegram.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.